Get out of the way. Don't interrupt our alpha's ceremony. I was shoved to the ground by a snarling she-wolf, her eyes alight with pride not earned but borrowed. The scent hit me first, a cloying floral note tangled with Liam Blackwood's overpowering alpha musk. When I saw him guide her into the great hall for his birth moon celebration, the wolf inside my chest unleashed a howl of utter devastation. I knew, with the crushing weight of a bond rejected, I had lost everything. My heart shredded, my pride trampled, and my future reduced to ashes in an instant of betrayal that burned like wildfire through my veins.
Welcome to Luna's Romance Stories. Read the entire novel in one go. Message or comment to tell me what kind of story you'd like to read. Subscribe to the channel for daily updates. Luna reminds you, the story begins now.
I retreated to the shadows, the raucous howls and guttural laughter of the pack grating like sandpaper on raw nerves. The glow of my phone screen was harsh. Mother's messages were brutal in their simplicity. Daughter, he parades his mate before the pack. The wager is lost. 3 years. Liam Blackwood's wolf refused yours. Return now. Your duty as Iceclaw Pack heir cannot wait. Duty heir. The words felt like iron shackles snapping shut. My gaze cut through the crowd to where Liam stood. His arm locked possessively around a slender figure. Emma Rivers, the whispered legend of his true mate. The Luna lost and mourned. The ghost whose shadow I'd worn for 3 years. This was my first glimpse of the woman who had unknowingly held my future hostage. Emma looked breakable, ethereal. Her submission was a tangible force, a quiet power that made the surrounding wolves seem brash. So this is what he craved. My tongue traced my teeth, tasting the bitter ash of failure. 4 years ago, at a gathering of young alphas and high-ranking females, a brash she-wolf from the Rockridge pack had stalked up to Liam. She'd offered herself as a mate, a political alliance wrapped in fire. Alpha Liam, leaning against the obsidian hearth, had taken a slow drag from his cigarette, his usually warm amber eyes turning cold. That lazy, cruel smirk touched his lips. "Sorry, princess," he drawled, smoke coiling. "My wolf prefers him softer, simpler, less like a rival alpha, more like Omega." Hidden in the shadows, I'd felt my own wolf stir with treacherous hope. I'd loved him silently for 2 years, drawn to his raw power, the magnetism of his bloodline. But Mother, Elara Snow, the indomitable alpha of Iceclaw, had forbidden it. The enmity between our packs ran deep, and she viewed the concept of true mates with icy contempt, a fatal weakness. Hearing his preference, I'd seen a sliver of light. I'd made the wager if I could make Liam Blackwood's wolf choose me, bind him as my mate. She would bless the union. She'd agreed, doubtless certain I'd fail. To win, I'd buried Arya Snow overnight. The Iceclaw Pack's heir vanished. In her place stood a meek, ostensibly low, born Omega, seemingly adrift, unconnected. I smothered my alpha, born Aura, masked my strength, played the vulnerable, gentle creature Liam claimed to want. I wove myself into the fabric of his territory, a silent, unthreatening shadow. He noticed eventually. One night, after a wild hunt under the gibbous moon, he was waiting, his gaze blurred with drink, swept over my carefully constructed docility, a spark of lazy kindling in his wolf gold eyes. Always lurking, little wolf. His voice was a low rumble that vibrated in my bones. Got a taste for the real thing. I'd nodded, keeping my eyes downcast, my posture submissive, a dark chuckle. Wanna see where that hunger leads, stick close, be my girl. He didn't offer the mate bond, not then, not ever truly, but it was a foothold. 3 years, 3 years of pouring my soul into this charade. I learned to tend to him, nursed him through wounds ripped open in border skirmishes, endured whispers that I was a fool. He joked, rough affection coloring his tone. Gotta look after my little one. He talked of providing. A clear sign an alpha was claiming responsibility. The lie festered inside me. The wager felt like a betrayal of the sacred thing it should be, after months of wrestling with guilt. my wolf howling for honesty and the claiming bite. I decided to tell him everything on his birthday. Then Emma Rivers walked back into his life. The energy in the great hall shifted the instant she appeared. A hush fell as a male near me, one with a tongue like a serrated knife, elbowed his companion, voice dripping with malice. Well, well, the real Luna returns. Guess someone's spot warming the alpha's fur just got frosty. He shot me a mocking glance. All that groveling for a taste of power, and the true mate bond snaps shut, pathetic. Hush now, Emma's voice was soft as falling snow. Yet it silenced him. She turned those huge, limpid eyes towards me, swimming in manufactured sorrow. I am so terribly sorry, Arya, was it? He and I, fate tore us apart. I never dreamed his grief, his wolf's loneliness, would drive him to seek comfort in an echo. Her gaze swept over my deliberately plain attire, lingering. It was cruel of him to use you as a substitute, unworthy of an alpha, but, she added, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper laced with pity. You did gain so much being near an alpha like Liam. Surely it wasn't a total waste. An Omega should be grateful for table scraps from an alpha, even as a stand. In for his true mate. The insult to my disguise was sharp, but the deeper insult to my blood ignited a glacial fury. Liam's attention finally landed on me fully. Tonight, I wore crimson. The wide-eyed innocence was gone. Omegas should be yielding. His voice, when it came, was the dismissive command of an alpha ending in inconvenience. Emma's back. What we had served its purpose, it is done. He pulled an envelope from his jacket and tossed it onto the low table before me. For your time, consider it severance. $100,000, coin for a favored servant, payment for services rendered, not recompense for 3 years offered to a potential mate. He dismissed my devotion, my fragile hope, with the casual brutality of swatting a fly. The sheer, icy finality of it, the reduction of us to a transaction, broke me. The irony tasted like poison. 3 years. 3 years he hadn't claimed me, hadn't sealed the bond. He'd kept his distance, saving himself for his true mate. And I, the deluded fool, had mistaken his restraint for a slow-growing path to the claiming moon. A laugh sharp and cold as shattering ice escaped me. It cut through the silence as the dam holding back my true nature shattered. Keep your blood money, Liam Blackwood, I said, my voice stripped of every shred of meekness. Honestly, I am bored. Your performance in bed was mediocre at best, lacking the endurance one expects from a true alpha. I picked up the half-full goblet of deep crimson pack wine beside me. With a flick of my wrist, the dark liquid flew, hitting Liam square in the face, dripping like gore from his shocked features onto his fine tunic. The silence was absolute. I calmly picked up a linen napkin, wiping my fingers with deliberate slowness. A slow, dangerous smile curved my lips. That, I declared, the words ringing with icy finality, was for 3 years wasted on a wolf too blind to see the storm standing before him. Without a backward glance, ignoring the outraged growls building and the shock radiating from the pack, I turned and walked out, the heavy doors groaning behind me. I didn't look back. The game was over. The mask was off. Arya Snow was going home. Behind Arya, the silence exploded. By the moon's tears. Did she just? Insolent whelp. She desecrated the alpha's honor. She refused 100,000. What life does that mongrel think awaits her now? Liam stood rigid, wiping the wine from his eyes, fury and humiliation warring on his face. His alpha aura flared, hot and suffocating, momentarily quelling the outcry but not the undercurrent of scandalized whispers. Let the Omega run, he snarled, the words bitten off. If it spares Emma her nuisance, good riddance. She is nothing, packless. We'll never send her kind again. He dismissed Arya utterly. Where could she possibly go? His expression seemed to sneer. No pack, no powerful kin. She'd crawl back or die alone. But Arya didn't flinch. His words chased her into the night, but she didn't look back. Liam Blackwood thought he'd seen the last of her. He hadn't, not by a long shot. I didn't linger in Oakvale territory. There was no reason to stay. I'd only attended college there to be near Liam, and now that I'd graduated and he found his supposed true mate, the city held nothing for me anymore. I booked the first available flight back to Echo Ridge, the ancestral territory of the Ice Claw Pack, my homeland, my birthright. When I stepped off the plane, Luna Hartley was waiting for me. My best friend since childhood, though we'd barely spoken these past 3 years due to my obsession. "So, you are back for good this time?" she asked, searching my face for any signs of the broken-hearted Omega I'd pretended to be. I met her gaze steadily, my chin lifted in a way I hadn't allowed myself in years. "For good," I confirmed. In previous years, I'd only visit Echo Ridge briefly between semesters, always rushing back to orbit around Liam like a pathetic moon. My time with Luna had been limited, our conversations perfunctory. But now the wager was lost. There was nothing pulling me back to that life of pretense anymore. Luna squeezed my arm as we walked toward her car. "I heard about what happened with Liam," she said, her voice gentle but not pitying. "Let's not talk about that depressing shit. Tonight's about welcoming you home." I smiled, genuinely, and nodded. The knot in my chest loosened slightly. Luna took me to Eclipse, Echo Ridge's most exclusive werewolf club. She ordered a bottle of rare blood moon whiskey, the kind that burned deliciously going down and hummed in our supernatural veins. "To your homecoming and newfound freedom," she toasted. "Won't drink in," and I could feel my wolf stretching inside me, pleased to shed the meek persona I'd forced upon her for so long. "Thank the moon goddess, you are done with Liam," Luna said, refilling our glasses. "The way you transformed yourself for him. I barely recognized you. My wild, fearless Arya. Suddenly this docile, bookish wallflower who wouldn't touch alcohol or fast cars. It was fucking bizarre." My lips curled into a smile that held the first hint of my former confidence. The Ice Claw Pack had always prized courage and strength above all. Before my charade, I'd been known for my love of adrenaline. Street racing through mountain passes, bungee jumping from cliffs, even battling rogue wolves along our borders after my first transformation at 16. I had been the pack's fiercest female warrior, an extreme sports junkie who sneered at men and alphas alike. I'd mocked my mother's belief in destined mates and fate. Until I sacrificed everything that made me to become what he wanted. I must have lost my fucking mind, I drawled, swirling the amber liquid in my glass. I still couldn't fully understand what had possessed me. Perhaps it was rebellion against my mother, or maybe I needed to prove that mate bonds weren't the ultimate power my mother claimed them to be. I'd been determined to make a wolf I'd chosen fall for me, even if it meant becoming bland, ordinary, even stupid. The bartender nearly spilled a drink as he stared at me, clearly responding to the alpha pheromones I was no longer suppressing. My wolf preened at the attention. "So," Luna said, studying me over her glass, "now that you and Liam are over, are you really going back to take your place as the Ice Claw heir?" I took a slow sip. A bet's a bet. My mother, Alpha Alara, stood as the only female alpha in our region. After my father's death, she'd weathered brutal pack politics and corporate attacks against Glacier Corp with unmatched resilience. I'd always admired her strength, even as I chafed under the weight of her expectations and control. My sister Nova had always been too fragile for leadership, and I craved freedom too much. My mother had understood that, which is why she'd given me the choice. The wager now, I'd lost. And while it stung my pride, I wasn't a coward who ran from consequences. Luna raised an eyebrow. "Doesn't Ice Claw tradition require you to have a mate before you can officially take over? Has Aunt Alara lined someone up for you already?" "No," I replied with certainty. I understood my mother better than most. She was dominant by nature, but she wasn't cruel about my choice of mate. Her opposition to Liam had always been more about the generations, old rivalry between our packs, than about him personally. "Arya," Luna leaned forward, her voice dropping conspiratorially, "even though you lost the bet, Aunt Alara won't force you into anything. And honestly, there are plenty of wolves who'd kill to be with you." Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "If all else fails, I could always introduce you to Cousin Orion." Orion Hartley, the name alone sent an unwelcome shiver down my spine. As the supreme alpha of all American werewolf packs and leader of the Crimson Pack, he was the dream mate of countless wolves. His power, wealth, and devastating looks were legendary, as was his cold, ruthless nature. In my younger years, I'd been momentarily dazzled by him, a brief, embarrassing crush that I'd quickly buried, up close to that perfect face. No one's heartbeat remained steady, but I was too proud, too determined to stand on my own. I didn't need some powerful alpha to run my pack for me. I wanted to choose my own path, my own mate. I'd actively avoided any gatherings where Orion might appear, and in the years since, we'd only exchanged distant glances at formal pack functions. I rolled my eyes at Luna's suggestion, pretending it was just a joke between us. The cold liquor slid down my throat, leaving an unexpected bitterness on my tongue. As the night wore on, we both grew pleasantly buzzed, not drunk. As werewolves metabolized alcohol too quickly for that, but comfortably warm and loose-limbed. Luna suddenly checked her phone, her expression turning strange. "Orion says he is coming to pick us up." I could hear the confusion in her tone. Though she was technically part of Orion's pack structure, they weren't particularly close. It was odd that he'd suddenly message her, asking if I was with her, offering to drive us home. "He is probably just being responsible," she murmured. But she didn't sound convinced. A few minutes later, a sleek black Maybach pulled up outside the club. The window rolled down, revealing a face that made my breath catch, despite my best intentions. Orion's features were sculpted perfection. Aristocratic cheekbones, penetrating eyes, and pale skin that seemed to glow under the moonlight. His presence radiated power, danger, and something primally appealing that made my wolf stir restlessly beneath my skin. "Get in," he commanded, his deep voice sliding over me like dark velvet. His gaze swept over Luna briefly before landing on me with an intensity that felt almost physical. When our eyes met, my heartbeat stuttered, then raced ahead like I'd just thrown myself off a cliff. My wolf, so long suppressed beneath layers of pretense, suddenly howled to life within me. I recognized the sensation instantly, having felt its echo once before, years ago. But this time, there was no denying what it was. The mate bond, awakening, reaching, demanding recognition. I had been too stubborn to accept. Orion Hartley was my true mate, and from the hungry look in his eyes, his wolf had just confirmed what he'd apparently suspected for years. "Fuck," I whispered, the word carrying all the weight of my realization, the truth settling over me like a weight I couldn't fight. The atmosphere in the luxury Maybach was thick with tension as we drove through the moonlit streets of Echo Ridge. Luna, normally chatty and bold, sat rigid in her seat, not daring to utter a single word in the presence of her alpha. Despite being Orion's pack member, the power difference between them was palpable. She clearly held a healthy dose of reverence for the Alpha King. My attention drifted to Orion's wrist, where an old, worn wolf fang bracelet hung incongruously against his otherwise immaculate appearance. Something about it seemed strangely familiar, tugging at the edges of my memory, but the whiskey's pleasant haze made it difficult to place. My mind wandered back to the first time I'd encountered Orion Hartley years ago. The memory was sharp despite the alcohol. His commanding presence, the way other alphas deferred to him, how my teenage heart had hammered embarrassingly in my chest. A flutter that hadn't faded, only deepened with the sharpened intensity of his presence now. Now, years later, he remained just as devastating, his beauty almost cruel in its perfection. We dropped Luna off first, her house being closer. She shot me a meaningful glance before hurrying inside, leaving me alone with the most powerful alpha in America. Planning to stay in Echo Ridge, Orion's deep voice broke the silence, his tone deliberately casual as he pulled away from the curb. Though Echo Ridge was Iceclaw territory, it ultimately fell under his jurisdiction as Supreme Alpha. His question about my return was perfectly reasonable. "Yes," I answered simply. my fingers twisting nervously in my lap as I fought not to squirm under the weight of his unspoken questions. I waited for him to press further, to question my intentions or my alpha mother's plans, but he fell silent again. The powerful air conditioning and the rhythm of the car lulled me into a drowsy state, the silence stretching thick enough to taste, amplifying the erratic thud of my heartbeat. And before I knew it, I had drifted off. "Arya, wake up." The low rumble of Orion's voice pulled me from sleep. I opened my eyes to find him leaning into the car, the door already open. His face was inches from mine, those penetrating eyes studying me intently. The moonlight cast sharp shadows across his aristocratic features, every line of his face searing itself into my addled brain. "Orion," my voice came out husky with sleep and lingering alcohol, my breath catching at the proximity. He had opened my door and was leaning into the car, his broad shoulders blocking the exit. The crisp scent of pine needles emanated from him, enveloping me completely. My wolf responded with immediate, overwhelming hunger, a primal reaction I couldn't suppress, even as my rational mind screamed how dangerous this was. The cost of pretending to be an Omega for 3 years had been steep. I'd suppressed my wolf so thoroughly that I'd been incapable of forming a complete bond, a sacrifice that now left me adrift, uncertain if what remained between us could ever be whole. Yet fate had other plans, bringing us together again. But that glance just now, maybe it was just a trick of the light. And would Orion even truly recognize me, after years of hiding who I really was, of smothering the very part of me that would call to his? "You are beautiful," I murmured, a smile playing on my lips. The whiskey emboldened me, a reckless impulse surging through me to bridge the distance. Consequences be damned. I reached up and hooked my arm around his neck, pulling him closer. "Want to fuck me?" I asked, drawing out the words with deliberate provocation. Orion seemed momentarily stunned. He brushed a strand of hair from my face, his voice carefully controlled. "You are drunk." "Not that drunk," I countered. I was intoxicated enough to be honest, but sober enough to know what I wanted. Memories of the past 3 years flashed through my mind, pretending to be something I wasn't for Liam. The lost wager that would now bind me to Ice Claw Pack leadership, the arranged mating that would surely follow. This might be my last chance at true freedom before duty consumed me. "Orion," I said, leaning closer until my red hair brushed against his face. "Don't you want me?" The tension between us built like an approaching storm. Then, without warning, his cool lips pressed against mine. His strong hands gripped my waist as our breaths mingled. "Don't regret this later, Arya." He growled against my mouth, gently biting my tongue in a gesture of dominance that sent electricity down my spine. The heat between us intensified rapidly. I caught my own reflection in his dark eyes, flushed, wanting, surrendering. Our kiss deepened, grew hungrier. The car suddenly felt too small, too confining for what we both clearly needed. We barely made it into my hotel room before Orion pinned me against the wall, his mouth devouring mine. My wolf howled with triumph as his hands explored my body, claiming every inch. The bond between us, the true mate bond I'd never expected to find, flared to life, magnifying every sensation. "I've waited years for this," he growled, his voice rough with desire as he tore my dress away like tissue paper. Me nails raked down his back, drawing blood as he lifted me, wrapping my legs around his waist. The feeling of his hard body against mine was intoxicating, perfect. "Orion," I gasped as his mouth found my neck, teeth grazing the sensitive spot where a mating bite would go. When his fingers slid between my thighs, I nearly came undone immediately. The mate bond amplified everything. Every touch, every sensation was magnified tenfold. I was soaked for him, my body recognizing what my mind had denied for so long. "You are mine," he growled possessively. "You've always been mine." We tumbled onto the bed, a tangle of limbs and desperate need. Orion's skills as a lover were as legendary as his power. Deliberate, commanding, attentive to every response. When he finally entered me, The pleasure was so intense, I cried out, digging my fingers into his shoulders. "Look at me," he demanded, and I obeyed, meeting his intense gaze. The connection between us was electric, primal. My wolf surrendered completely to him, not out of weakness, but recognition. This was what I'd never found with Liam, what I'd never even known to look for. With each powerful thrust, Orion drove me higher, the mate bond between us singing with completion. Wave after wave of pleasure crashed through me, more intense than anything I'd ever experienced. My body convulsed around him, drawing him deeper. Orion's eyes flashed with his wolf as he claimed me completely, his release triggering another explosive climax of my own. As we lay tangled in the sheets afterward, his arms wrapped possessively around me, I realized with startling clarity, I'd spent 3 years chasing the wrong wolf. My true mate had been watching, waiting all along. "How long have you known?" I asked, tracing the lines of his chest with my fingertips. Orion's hand stroked my hair, a possessiveness in his touch that my wolf adored. "Since the first moment I saw you at your father's funeral. You were 17, fierce and beautiful, challenging everyone with your eyes." His voice deepened. "But you were too young then. I decided to wait. And then I went after Liam," I murmured, understanding dawning. His arms tightened around me. "I've never wanted to kill another alpha so badly in my life," he admitted, a dangerous edge to his voice. "But I respected your choice. I thought you'd eventually realize he wasn't your mate." I looked up at him, seeing both man and wolf in those predatory eyes. "And if I hadn't, I would have waited forever," he said simply. "But now you are mine, Arya Snow." His hands slid down my back possessively. "And I don't share what is mine." The next morning, I woke to an exquisite ache radiating through my entire body. Every muscle felt deliciously sore, a physical reminder of the night's passionate encounter. Memories rushed back as I opened my eyes, causing me to momentarily stiffen beneath the sheets. Had I really slept with Orion Hartley, the supreme alpha of all American wolf packs? The thought sent a flutter of conflicting emotions through my chest. Even wolves knew better than to hunt too close to their own dens. As my thoughts raced, the sound of running water in the bathroom abruptly stopped. Moments later, Orion emerged, a hotel towel wrapped low around his hips. Water droplets traced tempting paths down his muscled chest and taut abdomen. The sight of him, tall, lean, powerful, sent an involuntary heat rushing to my face. "You are awake," he observed, his voice as rich and dark as I remembered from the night before. "I am sorry about last night," I blurted out reflexively. "I had too much to drink." Orion paused, his penetrating eyes narrowing slightly. His expression cooled noticeably, and the chill in his voice could have frozen fire. I gathered my clothes from the floor, all too aware of the marks that covered my skin, evidence of his passionate possession. I didn't shy away from his gaze as I met those predatory eyes, forcing my lips into a casual smile. "Luna and I are still friends, so about last night, you don't mind keeping this between us, Alpha Orion?" I deliberately made my tone languid, dismissive. Perhaps I was being overly sensitive, but I could swear his expression grew even colder after I spoke. He lit a cigarette, dark eyes lingering on me as smoke curled between us. Then, with deliberate casualness that didn't match the intensity in his gaze, he asked, "Do you treat all alphas this way? Like that Liam, perhaps?" His knowledge of Liam caught me off guard. How did he know about my history with the Rockridge Alpha? The question flashed through my mind, but outwardly I maintained my nonchalant smile. "No, Alpha Orion, it is just that." "Well, you had your fun too. Let's call it even, shall we?" I winked playfully, though internally my wolf was whining with unease. Orion Hartley was unlike any other alpha I'd encountered. Brilliant, accomplished, and famously untouchable. Like the cold moon hanging distant in the night sky, beautiful but impossible to reach. What a mess I'd created. Orion tapped his cigarette, letting ash fall. He neither agreed nor disagreed with my suggestion. I noticed only the dangerous darkening of his eyes, the tightening of his jaw. "Whatever," he replied coldly. I exhaled in relief, quickly dressing myself before leaving the hotel. Once outside, I caught a taxi back to Ice Claw Pack territory. I was halfway into the car when Emma's fingers suddenly tightened on my sleeve, her knuckles whitening. I glanced down, annoyed. Her nervous fidgeting was starting to grate. "Liam," she murmured, biting her lip hard enough to redden it. I think I just saw Miss Arya, over there." My brow shot up. Arya, here. The thought was absurd enough to make me scoff. Arya? What in the hell would she be doing here? This 5-star hotel wasn't just expensive, it was exclusive. The kind of place where even mid-tier pack members needed an invitation. A rejected Omega fresh out of college with no family name or money to her name. She couldn't even afford the cheapest drink at the bar, let alone step foot through the lobby doors. Emma's voice softened. "Maybe she still can't let you go. You know how she was. Clingy even after you ended things. Perhaps she heard you were meeting Alpha Orion and came to beg." Clingy, that was putting it mildly. I rolled my eyes, jaw tightening. Arya had always been too much, too eager, too hungry for a place in my life that she'd never earned. The scene she'd made at my birthday party still burned in my memory. Her tear-streaked face, the way she'd shouted accusations like a common street brawler, embarrassing me in front of the entire pack. Now she was stalking me, pathetic. "Ignore her," I snapped, yanking my sleeve free. "Let her linger in the shadows if she wanted. She'd get the message soon enough." I'd been more than generous with her. Anyway, a nobody like Arya, she'd never have breathed the same air as me if I hadn't deigned to date her. A year of my time, gifts that cost more than her rent. She should be grateful, not chasing me like a lost puppy. The irritation faded as quickly as it came, replaced by the cold focus grandfather had drilled into me. I adjusted my tie, smoothing the fabric with precise fingers. "We've got more important things to worry about, the Apex partnership." Emma nodded, her expression earnest. "Of course, Liam, you are right. Good. At least someone knew how to prioritize." The Shadow Pack's decline was no secret. 2 years of shrinking profits, dwindling territory whispers behind our backs that we were weakening. Without Apex's backing, we'd be nothing, less than nothing. And Alpha Orion Hartley, securing his favor, could pull us from the grave. Grandfather had made that clear. Do whatever it takes. But when we reached the conference floor, my gut twisted. The receptionist's smile was tight, rehearsed. "I am sorry, Mr. Blackwood. Alpha Orion left 10 minutes ago. His beta is already en route to the airport." Left, just like that. I ground my teeth, forcing a calm I didn't feel. No message, no rescheduled meeting. "Nothing, sir," he seemed, in a hurry. I turned on my heel, fists clenched at my sides. Of course the most powerful alpha in the country wouldn't wait around for me. Emma's hand slipped into mine, her touch soft. "Don't worry, Liam. Apex is hosting that gala next week. Remember, you'll have plenty of time to talk to him there. He'll see how valuable we are." Her faith was almost sweet, if naive. I squeezed her hand, but my mind was already racing. What angle to take? What leverage to use? The gala wouldn't be easy. Every ambitious pack in the region would be there, all vying for Orion's attention. But I didn't have a choice. I met her gaze, my voice sharp with resolve. "One way or another," I said. "I will get that partnership. Shadowpack doesn't fall without a fight. And if Arya thought she could waltz in here and distract me, she was sorely mistaken. Some people just didn't know when to stay in their lane." I had returned to Ice Claw Pack territory where both Nova and my mother awaited. Alpha Alera's expression remained impassive as she regarded me. "I warned you from the beginning that Alpha Liam was not to be trusted. The Shadow Pack has always been our adversary." Her voice was cool and matter. "Of fact, according to our agreement, you lost the bet. Tomorrow you'll begin work at Glacier Corp. After you are married and familiar with operations, I'll bring you to work directly under me. Your sister's health is fragile. so you need to shoulder more responsibility at Glacier. I knew better than to argue with my mother's unwavering decisions. The only time in her life she'd ever compromised was when we made our wager 3 years ago. I remained silent, but Nova suddenly laughed softly from beside my mother, her tone deliberately provocative. "Mother, Arya has just returned home, and Victor is now my fiancé. Who exactly do you plan for her to marry?" "Alpha Victor Steele." The Alpha my mother had originally selected as my husband had fallen for Nova at first sight and broken our engagement years ago. Nova and I had never gotten along. As my mother's adopted daughter with chronic health issues, she'd always received the tenderness and indulgence that Alara never showed me. Nova's question was clearly intended to embarrass me. Alara glanced at me, her tone dispassionate. "I'll arrange some suitable candidates for you to meet in the next few days." Nova's lips curved upward in satisfaction. My mother had always been calculatingly pragmatic. Any husband she selected for me would primarily serve our pack's interests, with little regard for my own preferences or happiness. Still, I kept my expression neutral. "Mother, you promised that I could choose my own husband, even if the marriage itself wasn't negotiable." My mother's brows furrowed in disapproval. I maintained my composure as I faced my mother's penetrating stare. The tension in the room was palpable, but I refused to show weakness. "You needn't worry," I said coolly. "Liam and I are done, but since I'll be taking over Ice Claw Pack eventually, I'd prefer a stable marriage with someone I don't actively despise." My mother had never approved of my connection with Alpha Liam, partly because she saw my feelings for him as a weakness clouding my judgment, but primarily because Shadow Pack and Ice Claw Pack were business rivals. Though Shadow Pack wasn't quite at our level, they were still enemies in her eyes. Truth be told, my mother's controlling nature rarely extended to my marriage prospects. Her attention had always been more focused on Nova than on me anyway. My mother's sharp eyes assessed me for a long moment, searching for any hint of deception. "Very well," she finally conceded. "Choose your own mate. But remember you agreed to the terms of our bet. Arya, don't disappoint me." I nodded silently. After my mother disappeared upstairs to attend to other matters, I was left alone with Nova in the living room. Despite being sisters in name, our relationship had always been strained at best. Nova deliberately toyed with the expensive jewelry my mother had purchased for her, a smirk playing on her lips. "Arya, you don't actually believe you'll find anyone better than Alpha Victor, do you?" She laughed mockingly. "Everyone in our circles knows how you debased yourself for Alpha Liam. Who would want to claim you as their Luna now?" Though the Shadow Pack's territory was in Oakvale, rumors of my relationship with Liam had spread throughout Echo Ridge like wildfire, each telling more salacious than the last. I merely glanced at Nova, feeling nothing but indifference toward my adoptive sister. In truth, I had felt relief when Victor broke our engagement, though Nova had always harbored resentment toward me for reasons I couldn't fully comprehend. "Victor Steele?" I raised an eyebrow, a sardonic smile forming. "Keep him if you want, though I've heard he plays quite liberally on the side. Perhaps regular health screenings would be wise, sis." "You." Nova's chest heaved with indignation. I knew the difference in how my mother treated us. Alara was harsh with me because her expectations were higher. But why should that bother Nova? Why the endless animosity? As I walked away, I could feel her gaze burning into my back, dark with unspoken resentment. She was Alpha Alara's adopted daughter, yet that never seemed enough for her. At least I hadn't been foolish enough to mask my alpha scent just to please a man. I had more pressing matters than Nova's jealousy. Word of my newly single status spread quickly, and friends eagerly arranged introductions to potential mates. For 3 straight days, I met with various suitors, none of whom sparked the slightest interest in my wolf. I was just leaving my latest disappointing meeting when a familiar voice called out. "Arya, what a coincidence." Emma stood nearby, arm linked possessively through Liam's, dressed in expensive designer clothes that screamed new money. Her expression remained as sweetly docile as ever, though her eyes told a different story. Beside her, Liam frowned as he took in my appearance. I knew I looked different. Bold red lips, styled hair, confidence radiating from every pore. Nothing like the meek Omega I'd pretended to be. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice cold. This restaurant operated on an exclusive membership basis. In his mind, someone of my supposed status shouldn't have access to such places. I quirked my lips into a playful smirk. "Why shouldn't I be here? Is Miss Aria here to work?" Emma's gentle laugh carried a note of false sympathy. "The pay is good, I suppose, but surely a university graduate like yourself could find better than waiting tables. What is wrong with being a server?" I let my gaze drift lazily over her $1,000 outfit. Money earned through honest work beats relying on a man's wallet any day. Emma paled slightly, biting her lower lip in that perfectly practiced damsel, in distress manner that made my wolf want to growl. Liam's face darkened with disgust. "There is nothing wrong with providing for my mate. When we broke up, I offered you $100,000 as compensation, which you stubbornly refused. With that attitude, Aria, you are hardly qualified to work in an establishment like this." He turned to summon the manager while Emma watched me with quiet satisfaction gleaming in her eyes. Looking at them together, I suddenly found the situation laughably absurd. If I truly had been a struggling graduate with no pack or resources, the Omega I'd pretended to be, Liam's actions would have devastated my life, pushing me further into hardship. And Emma, who should understand such vulnerability better than anyone, simply stood by watching him try to ruin me. Some true mate she was. The manager hurried over, concern etched on his face. "That server's got a real chip on her shoulder. Seriously, you let people with that attitude work here?" Liam's tone could have iced over a hot tub. The manager's eyes widened in alarm. "Ooh, hold on, misunderstanding, Mr. Blackwood. That is Miss Aria, one of our black card members, not staff." "Say what?" Liam's eyebrows shot up like he'd just heard a dog recite Shakespeare. His expression soured, nose wrinkling as though he'd caught a foul scent. "Aria, spare me the theatrics. You really think this little show is gonna make me crawl back, please?" I flicked a bored glance his way, my lips twitching with amusement. "Wow, you are dumber than a box of hair." I couldn't believe my eyes. Aria, standing there like she owned the place, dripping in confidence I'd never seen before. The manager's words echoed in my ears. Black card member. Something wasn't adding up. For 3 years, she'd been the picture of humility, wearing the same rotation of modest clothes, accepting the cheapest menu items when we dined out, never once hinting at hidden wealth. Now suddenly, she was flashing black cards at one of the most exclusive establishments in the city. "Your table is ready, Miss Aria," the manager announced with a deference that made my skin crawl. "The private dining room, as requested." "Thank you," she replied smoothly, her voice carrying an authority that seemed to come from nowhere. Beside me, Emma shifted uncomfortably. "Liam, darling, perhaps we should go, our reservation." But I couldn't move. Something fundamental had shifted, like the ground beneath my feet had suddenly tilted. The Aria I knew, the quiet Omega who'd worshipped the ground I walked on, was nowhere in this woman's confident posture. I never thought the night would end like this. One moment I was confidently escorting my true mate through one of the most exclusive restaurants in the territory, and the next, I was being asked to leave like some rogue. "Apologies, Mr. Blackwood," the manager said with smooth, rehearsed courtesy. "Your membership has been revoked at the owner's discretion. I am afraid we must ask you to leave." "You're voked." The word slammed into me like a physical blow. This wasn't just a place to eat. It was a symbol, a hub of elite power among the werewolf community. Being a member meant something. Being expelled meant even more. "May I ask what prompted this decision?" I managed to ask, keeping my voice level despite the rage building inside me. The manager merely extended his hand toward the exit, his expression revealing nothing, and then I saw her. Aria. She was seated, relaxed, with that infuriating little smirk curling her lips, the expression of a woman who had just knocked a king off his throne. Emma's hand trembled in mine. I could feel her unease in the rigid way she clung to me, her scent sour with distress. I turned and led her out. My jaw clenched so hard my temples throbbed. The sting of humiliation was sharp and made worse by Arya's calm, knowing gaze. Once outside, Emma's eyes welled with tears, her soft voice breaking the tense silence between us. Outside, Emma's voice broke the silence, soft and uncertain. "Liam, do you think Arya had something to do with this?" I responded too fast, too sharp. "Impossible." My wolf howled in disagreement, but I buried it. "She doesn't have that kind of pull." Emma leaned in closer, whispering, "But the owner is supposed to be powerful, right? What if she is, offering herself to him? She is changed. Maybe she is doing this out of spite." "Let her dream." My voice came out cold, clipped. "Men like that wouldn't waste time on someone like her. She is not worth it." The date had ended hours ago. Another disappointing meeting with a potential mate who couldn't stir even the slightest interest in my wolf. 3 years of suppressing my true alpha nature had dulled my senses, making it nearly impossible to feel that spark everyone talked about. After my satisfying encounter with Liam and his so-called true mate, I lingered in the restaurant, sipping wine and basking in the quiet aftermath of poetic justice. Just as I stood to leave, a familiar figure emerged from across the room. Orion Hartley. My wolf immediately perked up at his presence, something that hadn't happened with any of my arranged dates. Tall, powerful, with midnight, dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold ancient secrets. He moved with the lethal grace of a predator, as the alpha of the Crimson Pack and the rumored Wolf King, who held authority over all North American packs. Orion's presence always commanded attention. "Fancy seeing you here, Alpha Orion," I greeted, careful to maintain my composure even as heat flared across my skin from his proximity. I refused to acknowledge the night we'd once shared, the night that haunted my dreams more than I cared to admit. His gaze roamed over me, slow and deliberate. "On another date?" he asked, voice low and gravel smooth. I nodded, trying to maintain my composure. It wasn't surprising he knew about my dating efforts. News traveled fast in our circles, especially concerning an unmated female alpha heir. "Your mother's idea?" he asked, his expression unreadable, eyes reflecting nothing yet seeing everything. Before I could formulate a response, he continued with unexpected directness. "What a coincidence. My family is also pressuring me about marriage." His eyes locked with mine, intensity burning behind his calm exterior. "So, Arya, why don't we bond? Solve both our problems at once?" My heart skipped several beats. Oh shit. This wasn't just any offer. This was Orion Hartley. May I ask why? I finally managed, swallowing hard as memories of our night together flooded back. "If this is about what happened between us, that is unnecessary. You were skilled. I enjoyed myself. If I need a reason." Orion idly toyed with the wolf's fang on his wrist, his voice deceptively casual. "Let's call it mutual benefit. You are Luna's friend, and I trust her judgment." I raised an eyebrow, taking a slow sip of my wine. "Mutual benefit? I am curious what benefit the mighty Wolf King would get from bonding with me." Orion's lips curved into a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He leaned closer, his scent enveloping me, sandalwood, pine, and something wild that made my inner alpha respond instinctively. "For starters," he murmured, his voice dropping to a low, intimate pitch, "I'd get another night with you. No rushing, no alcohol, just you fully present." His fingers brushed mine across the table, sending electricity through my veins. My wolf pushed against my skin, desperate to be closer to him. "I've had plenty of time to think about that night," he continued, his voice dropping lower. "How you felt beneath me, the sounds you made, how perfectly your body responded to mine." I fought to control my breathing, memories of his hands on my skin, his mouth marking every inch of me, threatening to overwhelm my senses. "And there is the small matter of politics," he added, pulling back slightly, his professional tone at odds with the heat in his eyes. An alliance between Crimson and Iceclaw would create the most powerful coalition the werewolf world has seen in generations. I studied him carefully, trying to read beyond his perfect mask. And you think I'd agree to a political match? After what happened with Liam? His expression cooled at the name. This isn't like that. I don't play games, Arya. His fingers traced circles on my hand. What I offer is power, protection, and a hell of a lot of pleasure. He hadn't noticed our bond, or maybe he had and chose not to mention it. I was still hiding the instability in my scent, the cracks in my wolf's essence. Alone, it was a risk, but with him, it could become a weapon. My wolf purred, but I'd learned not to leap at the first sign of affection. I need time to consider. Of course, he stood, towering over me, his presence making the air around us feel charged with electricity. But don't take too long. I am not known for my patience. As he turned to leave, he paused. By the way, I hope you enjoyed the little show earlier. Consider it a gift, the first of many if you accept my offer. My eyes widened. The membership revocation, that was you. Orion's smile was predatory, sending thrills down my spine. I own this restaurant, Arya, among other things. I never thought one casual dinner would change my life so drastically. As I contemplated Orion's unexpected proposal, my wolf paced restlessly beneath my skin, more alert and alive than she'd been in years. When he mentioned Luna earlier, I couldn't help but smirk slightly. I wondered what my friend would think about me marrying her cousin. But then again, with that face of his, it was hard not to be tempted. If I needed to find someone I didn't despise, someone with integrity and power to marry, Orion truly was the best option available. I curved my ruby red lips into a smile, batting my eyelashes playfully. Orion, darling, I don't think I have any reason to refuse. His eyes darkened with satisfaction. Tomorrow then, 10 in the morning at the registry office. He turned to leave, apparently having other business to attend to, when he suddenly stopped. His dark eyebrows furrowed slightly as he asked with clear intention, "What about Liam?" "It is over," I said, lowering my gaze as I remembered Liam's expression earlier that evening. "Don't worry, I am not the type to go back for seconds." Only then did he finally turn and walk away. I watched his retreating figure, struck by a strange sense of unreality. I was actually going to marry Orion Hartley. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of my bedroom in the Iceclaw Pack house, casting a golden hue over everything. I stared at my reflection in the full-length mirror, adjusting the simple white dress I'd chosen for the registry office. It wasn't extravagant, no lace, no veil, just elegant lines that hugged my figure without screaming bride. After all, this wasn't a fairy tale wedding. It was a strategic alliance wrapped in the undeniable pull of a mate bond I'd been too stubborn to acknowledge until now. My phone buzzed on the dresser. A text from Luna. "You what? Marrying Orion? Call me now." I smirked, but my fingers hesitated over the screen. "How do you explain to your best friend that you are marrying her cousin, the Supreme Alpha?" After one night of passion and a proposal that felt more like a business deal, I typed back quickly, "Long story, meet me after, promise to spill." Another buzz, this time from Orion. "Cars outside, don't keep me waiting." Bossy as ever. My wolf stirred approvingly, that traitorous part of me thrilled by his dominance. I grabbed my purse and headed downstairs, ignoring the curious glances from pack members milling about. News traveled fast in werewolf circles, but I hadn't told anyone yet. Not even Mother. That conversation could wait until after the deed was done. The black mock idled at the curb, Orion leaning against it in a tailored suit that made him look every bit the powerful alpha he was. His eyes raked over me as I approached, darkening with that possessive hunger I'd glimpsed last night. "You clean up nice," I said, trying to keep my tone light. He opened the passenger door for me. "Get in, Arya, we have a schedule." "No, good morning, no sweet nothings." Just commands. I slid into the seat, the leather cool against my skin. As he drove, the silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the engine. Nervous, he finally asked, glancing at me. Should I be? I shot back. His lips twitched. Most she-wolves would be quaking at the thought of bonding with the Wolf King. I am not most she-wolves, no, he agreed, his voice dropping. You are mine. The word sent a shiver down my spine, but I pushed it aside. This was mutual benefit, right? Power, alliance, and pleasure, not love, not yet. At the registry office, a nondescript building that handled both human marriages and supernatural bonds. We signed the papers quickly. The efficient, a beta from Orion's pack, stamped the documents with a seal that glowed faintly with magic, binding us not just legally but through the ancient rites. Congratulations, he said, handing us the certificate. Orion slipped a ring onto my finger, a simple band with a moonstone that pulsed with energy. It is done. I looked at my hand, the weight foreign but not unwelcome. Yeah, it is. He pulled me close then, his lips brushing mine in a kiss that was more claim than affection. Welcome to the family, Luna Aria. Luna, the title hit me like a punch. I was no longer just the Ice Claw heir. I was the mate of the Supreme Alpha, Luna to the most powerful pack in America. As we left, my phone rang. Mother, I answered, bracing myself. Aria, her voice was ice, cold. What have you done? Chosen my mate, I replied evenly, as per our agreement. With Orion Hartley, the Crimson Alpha. There was a pause, then a rare note of approval. Clever. But don't think this absolves you of your duties here. It doesn't. I'll be at Glacier Corp tomorrow, as planned. She hung up without another word, typical. I stood in the middle of Orion's penthouse. Our penthouse now, staring at the city skyline as the reality sank in. The ring on my finger caught the light, the moonstone shimmering like a captured star married to the Supreme Alpha. My wolf was purring contentedly, but my human sighed. That was a whirlwind of emotions I wasn't ready to unpack. Orion came up behind me, his arms wrapping around my waist, pulling me against his chest. His scent, pine and sandalwood, enveloped me, grounding and intoxicating all at once. Regrets already? He murmured into my ear, his breath warm. I turned in his arms, looking up at him. Those penetrating eyes held a mix of possession and something softer, something I couldn't quite name. No regrets, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Just adjusting, this happened fast. He chuckled, low and deep, the sound vibrating through me. Fast. I've waited years for you, Aria. There it was again, that reminder of how long he'd known about the bond. It made my stomach flip, but not in a bad way. Years, huh? And you never said anything. His hands slid up my back, fingers tracing my spine. You needed to find your own way, even if it meant watching you chase the wrong wolf. Liam, the name hung unspoken between us, but I pushed it aside. Well, I found my way back. Good. He leaned down, capturing my lips in a kiss that started slow but built quickly, heat pooling in my core. His hands roamed, possessive, claiming. We stumbled toward the bedroom, clothes shedding like unnecessary layers. That night, we didn't rush. He took his time, exploring every inch of me with a reverence that made my heart ache. You are mine now, he growled as he entered me. The mate bond flaring bright, amplifying every sensation until I was arching beneath him, crying out his name. Afterward, tangled in sheets that smelled like us, I traced patterns on his chest. What now? Pack life? Business? He caught my hand, kissing my knuckles. Now, we build Crimson and Ice Claw united. But first, you start at Glacier Corp tomorrow. Show them what a Luna can do. I smiled, but a flicker of unease stirred. Mother wouldn't make it easy. And Nova, her jealousy was a ticking bomb. But for now, in his arms, the world felt conquerable. The next day at Glacier Corp was a baptism by fire. The towering glass building in the heart of Echo Ridge buzzed with activity. Wolves in suits mixing with human employees, all under the umbrella of our family's empire. Mother Alpha Alara met me in the lobby, her expression as unreadable as ever. Arya, she said, nodding. No hug, no warmth. That wasn't her style. Follow me. We rode the elevator to the top floor, her office overlooking the mountains. You'll shadow me today, learn the ropes. Our alliance with Crimson opens doors, but don't think it'll be handed to you. I don't expect it to be, I replied, meeting her gaze. I am here to earn it. She raised an eyebrow, a rare spark of approval. Good, start with these reports. She handed me a stack of files, financials, territory disputes, masked as business deals, pack alliances disguised as mergers. Hers blurred into analysis, meetings where I sat silent but observant. Nova popped in during lunch, her smile too sweet. Sister dear, congrats on the quickie wedding. Orion must be quite the catch. I set down my sandwich. He is jealous? She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. Of you, please. I have Victor, but watch your back. Not everyone in Crimson will welcome an Ice Claw Luna. Her words lingered as I left work, driving back to the penthouse. Orion was there, cooking, actually cooking. Steak and vegetables, the aroma mouth-watering. You cook? I asked, surprised. He grinned. Surprises keep things interesting. How was day one? Intense. Mother grilled me. Nova sniped. Standard family stuff. He plated the food sitting across from me. Nova's harmless. Bitter, but harmless. Maybe. We ate, talking about his day, dealing with minor rogue incursions, strengthening borders. It felt domestic, normal, almost too normal for two alphas thrown together by fate and politics. That night, we fell into bed exhausted, but his touch reignited the fire. I could get used to this, I whispered as sleep claimed me. The following weeks settled into a rhythm. Mornings at Glacier, afternoons training with combined pack forces. Evenings with Orion. Our bond deepened with every shared glance, every heated night. But cracks began to show. One evening, I overheard Crimson Betas muttering in the training yard. Ice Claw blood in our Luna dilutes the line. I confronted them, aura flaring. Problem? They backed down, but the seed was planted. Orion dismissed it. Loyalty takes time. At work, a deal fell through, a merger with a neutral pack. Sabotage, Mother said, eyes narrowing. Someone leaked info. My mind went to Nova, but I had no proof. I'll investigate. That night, Orion was late. When he arrived, tension radiated from him. Rogue sighting near the borders handled it. Alone? I asked, concern lacing my voice. With my betas. He pulled me close, but his mind seemed elsewhere. We made love, but it felt different, distracted. Afterward, lying awake, I wondered if the honeymoon phase was ending already. The next day, Luna visited the penthouse. Girl, spill. How is married life with my cousin? I poured wine, intense, hot, complicated. She laughed. Orion's always been secretive, but he adores you, I can tell. Does he talk about me? Used to, back when you were off with Liam, drove him nuts. Guilt twisted. I had no idea. Now you do, make it count. Her words buoyed me. That evening, I surprised Orion with a home-cooked meal. Pasta. Nothing fancy. My turn, I said. He ate with gusto. Delicious. You are full of surprises. We talked deep into the night, about childhoods. Losses, his parents died young. I built walls, he admitted. I'll help tear them down, I promised. For a moment. Harmony reigned. It started small, a missed dinner. Orion's phone buzzing with encrypted messages. Then, a full-blown argument. I came home to find him packing a bag. Where are you going? Urgent business, rogue alliance forming. I'll be back in 2 days. Take me with you. Number 2 dangerous. I am an Alpha Orion, your mate. His eyes flashed. And my Luna, I won't risk you. That is not your call, I shouted. We're partners. He grabbed his bag. In pack matters. I lead, end of discussion. He left, the door slamming. I paced, fury and hurt warring inside. My wolf whined, the bond straining. Luna came over. He is protective, stupid, but protective. It is controlling, I snapped. The next day at work, Nova cornered me. Trouble in paradise. Heard Orion left without you. None of your business. She smirked, just saying, Victor never leaves me behind. Her jab hit home. Was this what marriage meant? Being sidelined? Orion returned, bruised but victorious. It is done. I met him at the door, arms crossed. We need to talk. He sighed. Arya, number you don't get to shut me out. If we're mates, it is equal. He pulled me into a hug. You are right. I am sorry. Old habits. We reconciled in bed, passion erasing the fight. But the conflict lingered, a warning of storms ahead. With the alliance solid, Glacier Corp expanded under my leadership. I took charge of a key negotiation with a European pack, diving deep into the details to secure a lucrative deal that would bolster our territories and resources. The meeting room was tense, filled with alphas and betas from across the ocean, their scents a mix of salt air and foreign woods. I presented our terms with confidence, outlining how the merger would benefit both sides: shared patrols, joint ventures, and economic growth that could withstand any rogue threats. Mother watched from the head of the table, her eyes sharp. But when the deal was signed, she offered rare praise. Well done, Arya. You are ready for more responsibility. The success invigorated me, and Orion celebrated with a surprise weekend getaway to a secluded cabin in the woods. No packs, just us, he said, his voice low as he drove us out of the city. The drive was long, winding through dense forests where the air grew crisp and wild. We arrived at dusk, the cabin nestled by a crystal-clear lake, its wooden beams glowing under the setting sun. That night, we hiked under the stars, our footsteps crunching on fallen leaves. We shifted into our wolf forms, running side by side through the underbrush, the wind whipping through our fur. The bond between us sang with pure joy, a harmonious pull that made every leap and bound feel effortless. Back at the cabin, we shifted back, collapsing onto a blanket by the fire pit. You are incredible, Orion said, his eyes tracing my form as the flames danced across his face. He pulled me close, his hands warm against my skin. Ditto, I replied, leaning into him. We spent the days exploring, swimming in the lake, where the cold water shocked our senses awake, fishing with makeshift poles, laughing when I caught a bigger trout than him, and talking for hours about our dreams. Pups, maybe, he mused one evening, his hand on my stomach. When you are ready. The thought warmed me. A future unfolding that felt right, returning to the city. Social events ramped up as we presented a united front. At a charity ball hosted by allied packs, the grand hall was alive with glittering chandeliers, elegant gowns, and the low hum of conversations laced with politics. I mingled with Alpha's mates, sharing stories of our pack's integration and earning nods of respect. One she, Wolf, a elegant elder from a southern territory, pulled me aside in a quiet alcove. Watch for jealousy, she warned, her voice a whisper amid the music. Not everyone likes the new power balance. Alliances shift sands. Nova's earlier words echoed in my mind, but I brushed it off, focusing on the dance floor where Orion waited, his hand extended. Home that night, we planned our future in more detail, expanding the pack's influence, perhaps starting a family when the time was right. Orion opened up about the bracelet again, his fingers toying with it as we sat on the balcony overlooking the city lights. Tell me more about my father's gift, I asked, curiosity nagging. He hesitated, his expression softening. He saw the bond before I did, asked me to protect you from afar. Why not tell me sooner? I pressed, leaning against the railing. You were young, rebellious. I didn't want to force it. It was fair, but it still stung a little, like a hidden layer to our story. Any other secrets? I teased, half serious. He kissed me deeply. No more, I promise. Trust continued to build as pack life thrived. Joint hunts brought Ice Claw and Crimson Wolves together, their howls echoing in unity through the forests. I bonded with Crimson members during training sessions, demonstrating combat moves I'd honed since childhood, swift strikes, evasive maneuvers, and strategic takedowns. One young beta challenged me playfully, and I pinned him with ease, earning cheers. "You are one of us now," he said, grinning as he yielded. Even Nova showed signs of change. During a family dinner at the pack house, she approached me quietly in the kitchen while Mother oversaw the meal preparations. "I was wrong about you," she admitted, her voice low, eyes averted. "You are good for him, for all of us." It wasn't a full apology, but it was progress. Victor nodded from across the room, his loyalty evident. The evening passed with shared stories and laughter, a rare moment of family harmony. The anonymous note arrived like a shadow, slipped under our penthouse door. "Ask about the bracelet's origin. It is not what he says." My heart pounded as I stared at the words, the paper crumpling in my hand. I confronted Orion that evening, holding it up as he walked in from a meeting. "Truth. Now," I demanded, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. He paled, setting down his jacket with a heavy sigh. "Your father, he didn't give it willingly. I took it after a challenge. He opposed the bond, thought I was too ruthless for you." The revelation hit like a claw to the gut. "You fought my father?" I whispered, stepping back. Memories flooded. My father's stern face, his protective nature. Orion nodded, his eyes pained. "For you, he lost the challenge. But he lived to see his mistake. He came around eventually, but I kept the details from you to spare the pain. Betrayal crashed over me like a wave. You lied all this time. You let me believe it was a gift." Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "I protected you," he argued, reaching for me. I pulled away. "No, you manipulated the story. How can I trust anything now?" The argument escalated, voices echoing off the walls. He pleaded. "The bond is real, Arya. That is what matters." But the hurt was too raw. I grabbed my keys and fled to Mother's house, the drive a blur of city lights and inner chaos. She met me at the door, her expression knowing. "He has been manipulating," I blurted, collapsing into a chair. Mother poured tea, her movements calm. "Men like him do what they must, but the bond is real. Don't throw it away lightly." Her words offered no comfort. They only fueled my confusion. I stayed away for days, ignoring Orion's calls that shifted from angry to pleading. "Come home, Arya. I need you," one voicemail said, his voice breaking. My wolf ached for him, the bond pulling like a taut string, but my pride held firm. Meanwhile, the rogues attacked with renewed fury, their strikes hitting Iceclaw borders hard. Reports flooded in, villages raided, patrols ambushed, and the whispers, led by Liam freed from submission. He claims it is for Arya. War erupted like a storm long brewing. Packs rallied under the alliance, warriors from Crimson and Iceclaw mobilizing in Echo Ridge's central command. I returned to Orion not for us, but for duty. "This isn't about our fight," I said coldly as I entered the war room. Maps spread across the table. "It is about the packs." He agreed, his eyes shadowed with regret. "I love you, Arya," he said quietly, the words hanging heavy. Unspoken before now, my heart twisted, but I focused on strategy. Prove it in battle. We planned meticulously, scouting routes, supply lines, ambush points. Nova joined the effort, her face determined. "I leaked info once, out of spite," she confessed in a private moment, guilt etching her features. "Never again. Let me help." I demanded proof of her loyalty, and she delivered, scouting a rogue camp single-handedly, bringing back vital intel forgiven. Barely. She fought alongside us. Skirmishes tested our resolve. In one midnight clash, fog cloaking the forest, rogues swarmed our position. I shifted mid-leap, claws rending fur and flesh, saving Orion from a deadly ambush as a rogue lunged at his back. "Thanks," he grunted afterward, bloodied but alive. "Partners, remember?" I replied, the bond mending slightly amid the adrenaline. Losses mounted, friends fallen, territories scarred, but our forces held, the alliance proving its strength. European packs aided us, their warriors arriving by ship and plane, thanks to the deal I'd secured earlier. Your negotiations saved us, one Alpha said, clasping my forearm in respect. Battles intensified across neutral grounds, the air thick with snarls, howls, and the metallic tang of blood. We pushed back rogue waves in grueling fights, dawn raids where the sun rose on fields of fallen, midnight sieges under moonlit skies. In the climax, Liam confronted us on a fog-shrouded plain, his forces ragged but fierce. "You stole her," he roared, shifting into a massive black wolf, eyes blazing with old jealousy. Orion met him head. On their clash, a whirlwind of fangs and claws, earth tearing under their paws. "She was never yours." Orion countered mid-strike, his voice a thunderous growl. I flanked the battle, taking down Emma's guards who protected her from afar, her pregnant form vulnerable amid the chaos. Facing Emma, I pinned her without harm. "You were weak," she spat, struggling futilely. "No," I snarled, my wolf form towering. "I was pretending for too long." She yielded, fear in her eyes. Orion bested Liam, forcing him to the ground with a paw on his throat. "Surrender," he demanded. Liam shifted back, defeated, his body battered. "For the pup's sake," he whispered, glancing at Emma. Mercy was granted. Exile, not death. His pack absorbed into ours, the threat dissolved. Peace returned like a cleansing rain, territories rebuilding under united rule. Orion and I finally talked in the quiet aftermath, sitting on our penthouse balcony as the city healed below. "No more lies," I said, handing him the bracelet. He took it, slipping it onto my wrist instead. "None, I swear." We renewed our vows publicly in a grand ceremony, packs gathered under a full moon. "I choose you, Arya," he declared, his bite marking me anew, the bond sealing with unbreakable strength. Nova found true peace, her redemption complete through battlefield valor. "Thank you for the second chance," she said at the ceremony, embracing me tightly. Victor stood loyal by her side, their bond strengthened. Years later, our family grew, a boy with Orion's eyes, then a girl with my fire. Watching them play in the yard, chasing butterflies under the sun, Orion held me close. "Worth every fight," he murmured, kissing my temple. "Absolutely," I agreed. Our empire thriving, love enduring the end.